We don't care, Yahweh. We don't care. Like when you read all the other stuff and you're just like, if you were being helpful, fine. But at this point, like, I'm frustrated by the other BS that you're spouting. Go away. Hey guys, welcome to Joel Reads Bible. I'm Joel and I read Bible so you don't have to. We're past the hump. Can I say that? Can I say that? We're past the hump. And the hump is Leviticus 18, which is all about humping. It's also, we're past midway. Splitting hairs here, but not eating them because they're unclean. Anyway, these are all things that we've learned. If you haven't watched the other episodes of Leviticus, you're not going to get all these great jokes, frankly. And then go back and watch them. Let me just say that. Go back and watch them just so you can laugh along. But we're here at Leviticus 19, and we're hoping for something a little bit more upbeat. I think last episode I got a little bit intense, I got a little bit serious, but we were talking about things that were kind of serious, and that chapter showed us again, just how heinous Yahweh is. The only difference in chapters like 18 versus say the first 10 chapters of Leviticus, the first 10 chapters of Leviticus, as much as they are heinous, the call to have countless animals destroyed and bled out for no apparent reason and blood flicked and sprinkled all over a tent, even though that's absolutely disgusting and barbaric, it doesn't really apply to us. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have to be concerned with it. We can just say, oh yeah, that was disgusting. Whereas something like Leviticus 18, unfortunately, that's the type of chapter that Christians would still look to and say, see, this is what the God that we still believe exists still wants from us. These are some laws that we can look to which are actually positive, and they're bigoted. They're bigoted, and then they miss something that's so very important. But again, if you haven't seen Leviticus 18, go back and watch it. I won't reiterate the whole entire thing, but hopefully we can keep things a little bit more upbeat and fun for this episode, because we're in Leviticus 19, and we're going to get started as soon as you subscribe, like the video, and then while you're watching, drop me a comment and let me know what I'm getting right, what I'm getting wrong, or commiserate with me and be like, yeah, that's crazy, man. Leviticus 19. Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to all the congregation of the children of Israel and tell them, you shall be holy, for I, Yahweh your God, am holy." So that's great. You'll be holy by extension. What's holy mean, Yahweh? Yeah, we don't know. That's one of the problems with holy, is we don't know what that. We get he's holy, but if we're holy because he's holy and we can be holy, then what's holy? Just the thing? Could we just replace the word holy with God? Like, you can be God because I am God. What is it? Honestly, I don't know the answer to that. It's interesting that some of these chapters speak to the congregation or the children of Israel, like this one, and some of them are speaking only to the Levitical priests. And I think that would be some laws that apply just to them, and some laws apply to everyone. So if you were ever to complain about some of these laws or some of the things that Yahweh commanded these people to do, important to keep an eye open for that, for when people say, no, I can sleep with my aunt. That was just priests that couldn't sleep with their aunt. Well, no, that one was for all the people. Each one of you shall respect his father and his mother. You shall keep my Sabbaths. I am Yahweh, your God. Don't need it. We don't need it. We don't need it. That's one of the 10. That's one of the top 10. Like, it's 2 of the top 10. We don't need that one. We have other things you could put in these places, right? Don't have slaves. Don't sleep with children. You don't have to reiterate this. Waste of space. Also, I could read less Bible. You know what I mean? We don't need to repeat everything. Don't turn to idols or make molten gods for yourselves. I am Yahweh, your God. Okay, so it sounds like this is just the 10 Commandments again. Like, don't turn to idols or make molten gods. I guess they're smelting them. Is it smelting? All right, get your form, and we're going to do a cast of a god. Don't do that, Do a straw god. You can build a straw god, one of those dolls, like it's like a voodoo doll. I'm picturing. There's certain things you can do. You can carve them out of stone, but don't make a molten god. That's crazy. Obviously, you're not allowed to have any graven images. So I'm making a semantic joke, but you get it. When you offer a sacrifice of peace offering to Yahweh, you shall offer it so that you may be accepted. This is again the language that Yahweh used with Cain. It shall be eaten the same day you offer it, and on the next day, if anything remains until the third day, it shall be burned with fire. Yeah, so we're getting a repetition again. So let's just keep our nose down and power through. Is that a phrase? If it is eaten at all on the third day, it is an abomination. It will not be accepted. But everyone who eats it shall bear his iniquity, because he has profaned the holy thing of Yahweh, and that soul shall be cut off from his people. So this is just another list of commands like the 10 Commandments, but they're just different. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your field, neither shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall not glean your vineyard, neither shall you gather the fallen grapes of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and for the foreigner. I am Yahweh your God. This is like half good. Hey guys, don't get all your harvest. Leave some stuff. And if the grapes fall, don't pick them up. There's some scavengers, some human being scavengers that are going to come around like rats and pick up the grapes, Don't pick them up for them and don't harvest the stuff and do the effort and give it to them. Don't treat them with any dignity or anything like that. Let them come and scrounge. Also, it raises the question of what's going on with the foreigner? How are we treating these foreigners? Are we treating them well? Why do they have to scrounge? Can the foreigner be wealthy and well-to-do and all those things? Or do they all end up as scroungers, urchins? I feel like this verse is almost fine, but then just misses the mark again. You shall not steal. Good. You shall not lie. Sometimes. You shall not deceive one another. Okay. It's interesting you shall not steal being here, because it's we're leaving stuff for people to come on our property and take it. Hopefully there's a newsletter or something like that, or a tablet or something, which is going to tell these people that they are allowed to come. Because if they know that they shouldn't steal, they might think this is stealing. But if this is the system, they would know that they're allowed to do that. You shall not swear by my name falsely and profane the name of your God. I am Yahweh. That's taking the Lord's name in vain. That's going to be the same idea. It's not, oh my God. It's not saying that. It's not oh my God. That's not taking the Lord. Yeah, you go for it. You can say that. Jesus Christ. You can say that all you want. It actually feels wrong to me because of how I was raised. I bet you other people that were raised similar to me that just go deep down, oh my God. We don't say that. That's worse than the F word or something like that. Just don't say that. But it's really not that. It's you shall not swear by my name falsely. You shouldn't be by God, I will build an orphanage. It's the same example I used the other time. I swear by God's name, Yahweh, that I shall build an orphanage, And everyone's you're not going to do that. You just profaned the name of God. He's Yahweh. You shall not oppress your neighbor or rob him. Fair enough. The wages of a hired servant shall not remain with you all night until the morning. The wages of a hired servant shall not remain with you all night until the morning. Pay your servant at the end of the day. I get paid every 2 weeks. Are they disobeying the word of God? I'd like to reach out to my employer and be can you pay me every day if you want to be biblical? You shall not curse the deaf, nor put a stumbling block before the blind, but you shall fear your God. I am Yahweh. Okay, this is a weird one. You shall not curse the deaf. I got news for you. Yahweh's already cursed them by giving them deafness. He's the one that's caused it. He took credit for it back when he was telling Moses to go and let his people free. And he's like, but I've got these faltering lips. And he's like, yeah, but I make people deaf and blind. That's me. I am the jackass that does it. Now he's like, don't curse them. It's like, well, don't make them deaf. Start with you not making them deaf. How about that? But I was having fun. Do not put a stumbling block before the blind. Don't do pranks. That's a horrible prank. But is this something they were doing? Like, putting a block in front of a poor blind person? The reason for it, I guess maybe this was happening so often that they were like, but you shall fear your God. Don't do it. I am Yahweh. You'll fear your God. Because that seems like so random to throw that in there. They're like, if he just says don't do it, we're still going to do it because it's so funny. But you shall fear your God. Actually, maybe we shouldn't. Remember the mountain? Remember all the trumpets and the thunder on Mount Sinai? He might do more weather. You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor show favoritism to the great. But you shall judge your neighbor in righteousness. We've been over this. You shall not go around as a slanderer among your people. You shall not endanger the life of your neighbor. I am Yahweh. I feel like slandering is bearing false witness against your neighbor. Now we're getting really specific into how we're not going to do certain things, which anytime you get a vague law where somebody's just like, well, they didn't mention it, you can just show them this stuff and just say, no, they'll mention it. If it was important, he would mention it, because we could have just used the first 10 commandments. We don't need all these reiterations, and we don't need to hear don't go around as a slanderer, because you've basically already said that. You shall not hate your brother in your heart. You shall surely rebuke your neighbor and not bear sin because of him. So I don't know how these two things relate. Sometimes I don't know if they organize the verses very well. But you shall not hate your brother in your heart, which I think is actually something that Jesus is going to say you shouldn't do. He's just going to say that that's murder. He's going to up the ante on this one. Don't murder, hate your brother in your heart, and if you do, that's actually murder. We already have that. If people go, Jesus actually changed that. Well, he didn't change anything. He actually just brought two laws and put them together. And if we are to believe that all sins are equal, which I'm not sure is actually in the Bible, if breaking one of the laws is like breaking any of the laws, then in a sense, the law has already done this work. Jesus did not give us anything new. That's exactly what is written here. Why has anyone else noticed this? You shall surely rebuke your neighbor and not bear sin because of him. Okay, so if your neighbor is doing something bad and sinful, like looking at his brother with hate in his heart, you go, I don't agree with that. That's wrong. I'm not going to bear his sin. That kind of thing. You shall not take vengeance nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahweh. Is this the chapter where Jesus gets all his teachings from? This is how we know Jesus and Yahweh are the same God. They just say the same stuff. So any time that we think Jesus is doing something different, he's just changing his mind, I guess, again. We've already seen that. He's just developing things and coming up with new things as if people wrote it. Don't bear a grudge against a fellow Hebrew is essentially what's happening, and don't take vengeance. So try to keep the peace and work amongst yourselves. You guys are part of the same tribe. You guys are part of the same nation. Love your neighbor as yourself. People will cite love your neighbor as yourself, as Jesus says it, as loving everyone. That's not really loving everyone. That is loving your fellow people, your fellow Hebrews, your fellow Israelites, because that's what's happening here. Don't do anything against the children of your people. These are your Hebrew people. And love your neighbor, your fellow Hebrew, as yourself. So if Jesus is saying the same thing, it's probably what he's referring to. You shall keep my statutes. You shall not crossbreed different kinds of animals. Oops. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed. Okay. You shall not wear garments made of two kinds of material. All right, so just to reiterate, this is not just for the Levitical priesthood. This is for all the children of Israel. This is for everyone. This is for all the Hebrews. So sowing your field with two kinds of seed, don't do it. And if you want to say that that's just for Hebrews and not for anyone else, that's fine too. But then just take out love your neighbor as yourself as well. Like that's not a message for you either. That's a message for Hebrew to Hebrew. We can't pick and choose, right? Just the things that we like. If we want to wear garments with two kinds of material, then we also have to say that, look, you are allowed to love your neighbor, but don't for any reason think that love your neighbor as yourself is some sort of universal good thing for everyone necessarily, or that Jesus or God meant it for everyone. It's really just Hebrews love your Hebrews. I think you get what I'm saying, is it's this double standard of what is meant for everyone and what is the message for the world versus what is just for a select few people for a limited time only. And I think there's a little bit of must be cognitive dissonance going on there. If a man lies carnally with a woman who is a slave girl, I was wondering, pledged to be married to another man, and not ransomed or given her freedom, they shall be punished. They shall not be put to death because she was not free. He shall bring his trespass offering to Yahweh to the door of the tent of meeting, even a ram for a trespass offering. The priest shall make atonement for him with the ram of the trespass offering before Yahweh for his sin which he has committed, and the sin which he has committed shall be forgiven him. This is very specific. If a man lies carnally with a woman who is a slave girl, that would be probably fine. Pledged to be married to another man. So another man has purchased her. Read Exodus 21. And not ransomed or given her freedom. He hasn't bought her from the other man, right? He hasn't been like, okay, let me pay you for the person that you purchased, right? It kind of feels in this case like if a man and a woman actually like each other, and we're going to see this later in Deuteronomy, spoiler alert, but if this was a situation where a man took advantage, or I would say assaulted a slave girl that was going to marry another man, betrothed, then that would be a completely different situation here. He'd have to marry her. But in this case, I feel like the woman is kind of like into it. Like they like each other. But she's not free. She can't just be doing this. He hasn't paid for her, and they are going to be punished. I don't know what happens to her, but also I feel like we're going to read in Deuteronomy that maybe elucidates that situation a little bit more clearly, or it might even actually just contradict it. We'll see. When you come into the land and have planted all kinds of trees for food, then you shall count their fruits as forbidden. For 3 years it shall be forbidden to you. It shall not be eaten, but in the 4th year all its fruit shall be holy for giving praise to Yahweh. In the 5th year you shall eat its fruit, that it may yield its increase to you. I am Yahweh your God. So you come into the land and have planted all kinds of trees for food. So it's almost like the land is dirty. The land is filthy. The land needs to be clean. So it's kind of like that waiting period of you're unclean till the evening, or you're unclean for 7 days, or this kind of thing. That's how it's feeling to me. I'm just guessing. But you come into a land for 3 years, don't touch the fruit, it's forbidden. It's just, it's there, they've got their germs all over it. In the 4th year, that's mine, that's holy. The fruit is holy, which means you can't have it. Again, holy. This time it must mean set apart for Yahweh or something. So just give it all to Yahweh, let it fall on the ground, maybe and rot for Yahweh. Then the 5th year is yours. Seems stupid and useless and wasteful, but okay, sure, great, Yahweh, fantastic, whatever you want. You shall not eat any meat with blood still in it. You shall not use enchantments, nor practice sorcery. Okay, bit of a non sequitur there. Not the first non sequitur we've ever seen, but you shall not use enchantments, nor practice sorcery. What do you think the Urim and Thummim are? What do you think this throwing lots is? And whichever one it lands on, the luck of the draw, the magic 8-ball lot throwing kind of nonsense that goes on. That feels a lot like some sort of enchantment. Anyway, whatever. Sorcery is whatever Yahweh doesn't want them to practice, but that there are some things that you would assume to be sorcery with what they do practice. So, you shall not cut the hair on the sides of your head or clip the edge of your beard. This is for everyone. You see Orthodox Jews walking around and they've got the hair like this, This is for everyone. That's not just for priests or any specific group or whatever. This is for all the children of Israel. So anyone that's not doing it is disobeying Yahweh. And if you want to follow Yahweh, I don't see why you're not growing out the hair on the sides of your head. You shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor tattoo any marks on you. I am Yahweh. Oh, that's fascinating. You may make cuttings in your flesh, by the way, just not for the dead. So obviously you can make a cutting in your flesh because you can pierce someone's ear with an awl for them to be your slave. So that is a cutting in your flesh. But you just can't do that for the dead, like in honor of the dead, it seems. Don't profane your daughter or make her a prostitute, lest the land fall to prostitution and the land become full of wickedness. I wonder what profaning your daughter means. Is it saying something bad about your daughter to make her a prostitute? Is it saying like, oh, nobody's going to don't marry her. Don't pay me for her. She's garbage. Like, what is that? What does that mean? So I was thinking about this when we went back to the story of Dinah. And in the story of Dinah, they say, you have slept with our sister or my daughter, and you have made her a prostitute. And I was like, that's weird because it doesn't make sense that just because you slept with someone, you've now made them someone who gets paid to sleep with people. I was like, they must be using the word prostitute wrong, or prostitute meant something else. But then I've been thinking about it more, and it seems to make sense that these women have no autonomy whatsoever. They don't have any sort of agency or respect in the culture. They can't do things for themselves. They are only valued as they are tied to a man. So if they aren't sold by their fathers to some sort of man who's going to own them, then there's nothing else that they are able to do. I'm sure there's no other occupation that they would be able to have other than prostitute. They would have to now sell themselves because, of course, what is a woman's value to men of these places at this time? That seems to be what's being said here, that if there's no value in a woman for a man that's going to own her, well, then she's a prostitute. If she slept with someone else, no one else is going to want to have her and commit to her, or own her, I should say. Commit to her is a nice way to say it, but it's more own her. So she's just going to have to go about trying to survive in this land and make whatever money she can. Maybe the best way to do that in those days, the most profitable thing to do would be to become a prostitute. And God, if he did exist, if this was written by God, could write laws that would mitigate that would leave room for women to have the agency to do whatever they want to do. But in this case, it's like owned by a man or got to sell yourself to men. That's it. Those are your two options. This is a culture that really, truly does hate women. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am Yahweh. We don't care, Yahweh. We don't care. Like when you read all the other stuff and you're just like, go away, but keep my Sabbath. Okay, grow up. Leave us alone. If you were being helpful, fine. We'll keep your Sabbaths. We'll revere your sanctuary. But at this point, I'm frustrated by the other BS that you're spouting. Don't turn to those who are mediums, nor to wizards. Don't seek them out to be defiled by them. I am Yahweh, your God. Okay, now he's just being arrogant. After every verse, it's I am Yahweh. Has that been going on this whole time? I just didn't notice. All right, so no mediums, no wizards. What's fun about it is that the dark arts, of course, as a Christian or whatever, you believe in mediums. People who don't believe this stuff, we're like, they're charlatans. They're making it up. They're faking it. That's not real. Christians are like, no, they're tapping into demons. That's all real. Gotta believe it all, I guess. You shall rise up before the gray head and honor the face of the elderly, and you shall fear your God. I am Yahweh. If a stranger lives as a foreigner with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. Okay. The stranger who lives as a foreigner with you shall be to you as a native born among you. Okay, well, why do they have to get the grapes off the ground? And you shall love him as yourself. Is that what we do to love ourselves? We just leave grapes for ourselves in dirt? For you lived as foreigners in the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh your God. How do we love ourselves? We eat stuff out of the dirt. Is that how we treat the poor too? Is treating the poor like we treat ourselves? Just leave the seconds for them? Actions speak louder than words, right? It's nice that these words are here. The actions of what you said to do for these particular people wasn't the best. You shall do no unrighteousness in judgment in measures of length, of weight, or of quantity. Don't do any lengths or weights or quantities of unrighteousness. You shall have just balances, just weights, a just ephah, and a just hin. I am Yahweh your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. All right, I don't know what that means, and I don't care. You shall observe all my statutes and all my ordinances and do them. I am Yahweh. There could be a musical. If they can just get every single one of these laws down to one little line and then go, I'm Yahweh. You shall have no unrighteousness measured in length or weight or quantity. I'm Yahweh. He's Yahweh. If a stranger lives as a foreigner in your land, treat him and love him like yourself. I am Yahweh. He's still Yahweh. I keep saying I'm Yahweh. He won't shut up about being Yahweh. Guys, thanks for being here for Leviticus chapter 19. I enjoy reading the laws. They're more interesting than reading how to kill animals. So I don't mind these chapters. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, they're not the most exciting. They may be slightly dry, but it's fun to read some of the crazy, wacky, wild laws and figure out what they really meant back then. Anyway, thanks for being here again. Hey, look, if you haven't subscribed, I don't know what you're doing. Also, like the video for me real quick and leave me a comment telling me that I'm doing a great job. Thanks, bye.